Hello and welcome to all of you out there. This is our teaser trailer for the beginning of the 17-18 school year. Congratulations to those of you that are seniors because you'll be graduating soon. And so I'll be seeing you on your final trek out before you hit graduation come May. This is just a short little update video just to let you guys know what's going to be happening this year, and I'll just give you a few updates on myself. And I should see most of you guys next Thursday because none of you are freshmen. Now, one thing I'm always constantly trying to improve upon is how much I communicate with you guys, and just to make it as simple as possible. Now, last year, there's no secret that you guys were essentially guinea pigs. So in that spirit, it's always more important to get things up and running before they look nice. And now over the summer, since I've had an opportunity to make things look nicer, I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of a preview of that. So let's see. Let's go to Chrome. That's my current homework assignment. And let's go to my website. So you guys know I have a website. It's been pretty much underutilized, and I want it to be more utilized this year, but again, that could go by the wayside, and whoever knows how long. This was you guys last year, Computer Science 1. So let's just click on it. And I got a menu with all of the units. And this is essentially a refined version of what we did. First off, I just taught you guys what an algorithm was and how to go through about laying out a plan before we really started talking about getting down and doing things with some code. We learned a lot of vocab words. I won't get into them, but conditionals, loops, strings, arrays, objects, etc. We talked about the input-output nature of functions. We explored what we could do with information. Obviously, the things we can do with numbers is vastly different than the things that we can do with strings and arrays, but there are some similarities between the two. We talked about objects, and of course, this is a huge concept when it comes to programming. In fact, it's called a paradigm, and there are other paradigms out there. In fact, if you if you just want to know, you could say programming paradigms, and just go see what Mr. Internet tells you. Yeah, as you can see, I clicked on it recently. There's a whole lot of different ways in which you can think about a program running, and objects is just a very dominant one. Not the best, it just depends on your use, of course. But notice here I have a nice little Merry Christmas winter break, because with you guys last year I actually talked about classes before winter break, and I realized that that was probably a mistake. I probably should have spent more time on units 1 through 4. Of course, I'm always eager to talk about new things, but I did notice that I ended up in spending about 3 weeks in review and just went over things anyways. So I figured this year for the new students in Computer Science 1, just slow it down, and I won't really go through the rest of it, but you guys know we took all of our skills that we learned from JavaScript, put it on the web, and that was that. So what about this year? This year is going to have some new challenges. And since I'm a year older and you're a year older and we're both a year wiser, that means that I have a lot more to teach you. So in Computer Science 2, we're going to sort of get a little bit more of a holistic view of what this computer is all about. In fact, when we write programs, how does that actually do something? What parts of the computer are going to take pieces of our program, and how is data translated, and what is the processor actually doing with it, and all of those little fun quirks, we'll learn about them here. And after that, we'll proceed on to concepts in programming languages. So as I mentioned, JavaScript is just one language, and there's lots of languages out there, and each language sort of takes its own let's say prescriptive view on the concepts that it thinks are important to a programming language, and so it'll excuse me, so it'll emphasize some concepts and it'll de-emphasize other ones. So to help you guys have a better view, a more complete view of things that we can program, I figured it would be a good opportunity at the beginning of the year to take what we know in JavaScript and compare and contrast it with how other languages might approach that, and what are some things that other languages do very easily that JavaScript just does not do very easily. Which leads us into, from here, this is Q2 on. So roughly you can imagine there's 8 units throughout the year, so we'll cover 2 units a quarter. Of course, I'm not going to stick to that exactly. If we need to go a little bit slower, a little bit faster, it is what it is, but that's what I plan. But right here is, from this point on in the year, we're really getting into this idea of programming, how should I say, at a higher level, programming intelligently, not just about what's going to get the job done, but what are the best ways that we can create a solution so that it's consistent with what we already know and we can extend upon it in the future. So basically, instead of a data type, we'll talk about data structures. And what that means is that you can have a structure that uses many different types. So the type is just really the data that you're storing, but the structure is sort of how it interlocks and functions with itself. And so you can imagine this is a new level of abstraction where we're much more concerned about how pieces of the program talk to each other than whether or not it's a number talking to a number or a string talking to a string, but the fact that something knows how to talk to itself, that's the overall idea. So number to number, string to string, that's the same idea of self-to-self relationship there. And sorting algorithms. Sorting algorithms are a lot of fun, and it's basically the crux of a lot of the modern programs that you guys see. I mean, Google is essentially a company that built itself on sorting algorithms, and they're one of the largest companies in the world. There's a lot of good analysis to be done here with sorting algorithms, and it really is the backbone of a lot of the way that algorithms kind of work. You got a lot of information, what are you going to do with it? First step, sort it. So we talk about how to do that. Related to that is, of course, there's better ways to sort things, and there's less good ways to sort things. It's going to depend on the initial conditions of whatever your data is, and we talk about, you know, what those are and maybe what you should do in a certain time. We'll also talk about a language for how to describe efficiency. So that type of language is called a big O notation. It stands for operation time. So how long is it going to take for your program to operate, aka run? And N just, you know, stands for, I guess I didn't say it earlier, but it's the way you type it is you say capital O like in math and then parentheses ON. So a function of whatever number you put in there. Okay. And of course, Christmas break. So 4 units, then Christmas break. Design principles, design patterns. It's a little bit different than structures, but basically, if we can solve one problem, how does this one problem look like other problems that we can solve? And so that gets abstracted to a pattern. So it's essentially saying, oh, well, I can apply this whole process through a program I created to a whole host of things, and we call that a pattern. So we'll talk about some of the popular patterns out there that you would use to solve many different programs. This one's a little bit of a departure. Databases. We got to store information somewhere. Might as well be a database. So I give you a little bit of background information on the database and how to push-pull information from it. And you know, not a whole lot to be said there. It uses a lot of the same background skills that we used earlier when we talked about queries. So querying the DOM and querying a database are going to be pretty much the same, just different vocab words, but the same input-output relationship essentially. This is the part of the year which will be, how should I say, the most challenging because it'll put into practice everything that we did. So at this point, we'll be trying to create a full-fledged application, and an application will be made through considering 3 things. What's the data we're working with? That ends up being called the model. How should that data be displayed? And how do we control the interactions between the data that we have and how it should be manipulated on the page? So, you know, this is a big fancy way to say what's the best way to organize an application, and how do I separate the responsibilities of an application into 3 meaningful areas so that it all boils down and unifies into a singular experience. And basically at the end of the year is where I let you guys turn loose. We'll have learned so much at this point. I'm going to ask that you guys, how should I say, the final project could even be a whole month, maybe 6 weeks, just really depends. And I'm going to see what you guys can do with that free time. So I'm really excited to see about that. Whew. Alright, so I just did a lot of talking. Updates on myself. So again, I'll see you guys all on Thursday. Been running a lot more, taking 2 grad school classes. In fact, here's a homework assignment I was just doing, so I'll change picture so you can see a little bit better. I apologize for the lag. I'm not quite Hollywood or Twitch level stream quality, but as you can see, you know, I have a program to make. My professor is giving me objectives to hit, and I try to follow those as best I can. About an hour ago, I just finished these, so I'm about ready. This is the code I got to copy and paste to work on. I'm about ready to move on to, you can see it goes on forever. I'm about to ready to move on to this second program. So here it is, the program I was working on. You guys remember Atom, right? It's been a long time. Let's point to different parts of it. So let's say, oh yeah, what's the goal of this program? Well, let's just watch it run. Oh, did it time out? It did time out. Alright, I'll have to log back in. Is it gonna ask me for my password? Ask me for my password. Okay. Well, I suppose don't ask me for my password then. Just reopening it again. Wow, it's being really fussy. Oh, no, there it goes. It's just being really slow. Well, there it goes again. I hope you guys are having fun with this slideshow. Oh, did it just... Where'd my screen go? Where did the screen go? Well, that's weird. Okay, I will stop the recording because apparently it killed itself.